Hello everybody, welcome again to our Mind Prosperity channel. My name is Albert Villa and it's great to see you guys. A few things that you can do before we start. Please like and subscribe, and please send this video to as many people as you can because we do believe it can help them. And then also, I'm doing individual sessions with people, so if you want to book me for an individual session, you can email me. My email address will be on the screen. And also, I do talks with business people, emotional intelligence in the workplace. You can book me for sessions like that. We can do it live if you live in Bloemfontein, where I live, but mostly we do it over Zoom. So because we have contacts from many people outside of our city, so we can do it over a Zoom session. If you want to contact me for sessions about emotional intelligence in the workplace, individual sessions, and there are also a lot of topics that I do, please email me and find out, and then I can send you guys the stuff. So today we're speaking about overcoming anxiety. And in the time we are living in, we see that a lot of people are anxious, a lot of people are worried, and a lot of people are struggling with anxiety. So before we start, I wanna define or differentiate what's the difference between fear and anxiety. So fear is immediate. Fear is something that you see right now and you fear it. Anxiety is future focused. So you're anxious about something in the future. Now, let me just say this before we go on. Fear and anxiety are not necessarily bad things. So it's good if you see a snake to fear it, okay? To run away from the snake. It's okay to say, listen, for future reference, I want to put an alarm in my house, or, I want to protect myself in that sense, because, that doesn't mean you have a problem of fear or a problem of anxiety. If you see a snake approaching you and you're not worried whatsoever, if there's no fear about it, that thing might kill you. But I'm speaking about a place where anxiety becomes unhealthy, where you are so worried about the future that you are coming to a place where you struggle to function. So we're going to speak about overcoming anxiety and overcoming worry. Now, what I am saying is if you look at the future and if you're not worried at all, if you're like, I don't care if I pay my bills, you might sleep the whole day and you might not care. That's not a good thing either. So what we are speaking about is when you get to that place where your anxiety is getting the better of your emotions. So according to Dr. Elizabeth McMahon, anxiety is a cycle and we need to break out of it. And that means anxiety is not going to disappear magically or accidentally. It's a cycle that you need to go deal with. So in this session, I'm going to give you 4 questions that you have to ask yourself in order to deal with anxiety. If you feel like you're an anxious person, you're anxious about the future, many things are happening in your life and you're worried about it, there are 4 questions that I'm going to ask today and that we are going to deal with. So the first one is, what triggers your anxiety? Now imagine you have a broken arm or a broken shoulder and people punch you on that shoulder. It's going to hurt much more than it should, and that's a trigger. Sometimes somebody says something, sometimes somebody does something, and it triggers an anxiety that causes you to overreact or react in a way that you shouldn't react. Just like if somebody punches you on the shoulder and you scream and you're like, it's so sore, that means there's a problem. It's not okay if you punch me on the shoulder, but it shouldn't hurt that bad. So there are things that triggers your anxiety, and it's normally something that happened in your past, something that happened in your upbringing, something that happened with your siblings, something that happened in a previous relationship. Maybe you faced something in the past and you are so afraid to face that thing again, or you're so afraid to go through that thing again that it causes anxiety in the future. So for instance, a person might not be triggered financially because you've never experienced financial lack in your life, but you are triggered relationally because you have been treated bad in relationships. So every single time somebody comes into your life, you're kind of like anxious about it because you have faced some hurts in the past. Or let's take it the other way around. Maybe you've had good relationships and you don't have anxiety in the area of relationships, but you have anxiety in the area of finances because you started something in the past, it didn't work out, you went through a financial struggle, and now you're anxious about the future. So you have to go look at where your triggers are, because different people might be anxious about different things. It's not just like I have anxiety or I don't have anxiety, but we should come to that place where we ask ourselves, but why do I have this anxiety? So number one, what triggers the anxiety? The second thing you should ask is, what are your responses? How do you respond to this trigger? Now there are 4 ways a person can respond, and I'm going to go through all 4. So when a person gets anxious, your first response can be to fight. The fight response means you have irritability, so you get very irritated, you get angry, you get aggressive, and you move towards that thing. So as soon as that trigger comes, you have this fight, you have this irritability, you have this anger, you have this aggression, and you are going for that thing. That's the first response that you can have. The other one is flight. Flight basically means you run away. That's when you panic, you avoid the situation, and you have chronic worry, meaning what if this happens, what if this happens, and you withdraw yourself. That's the second way you can react. And the third way is to freeze. Freeze is when you get stuck. You just feel like you cannot move forward. You feel like you want to collapse. Immobilization, spacing out, dissociation, depression, and shame. That's when a person just freezes. It feels like you cannot go forward. And then the fourth response you can have is fawn. Fawn is people pleasing, avoiding conflict, prioritizing other needs over your own, and that's normally what a person does when they have codependence issues. Difficulty saying no and setting boundaries is hard. So fawn is when you get to that place where you become a people pleaser. So you should go see what are my responses and why the response that I have isn't good. And that will bring us to the third thing. What do you want your response to be? And what do you want your response to be? Number one has a lot to do with decision also. I decide this is how I want to respond now, but you cannot decide unless you deal with the issue. Like we said in number one, what is the trigger? What is the issue? What is my response? Why do I respond this way? How do I have to deal with it? And then you say, but listen, this is how I want to deal with it. So if you're a person that tends to fight, you have to say, listen, I don't want to run away. So I don't want to become a person that flees. I don't want to become a person that runs away. Also, I don't want to freeze. I don't want to get stuck. Also, I don't want to fawn. I don't want to become a people pleaser or codependent. The way I want to respond is I want to be in the situation, but I want to handle the situation in the right manner. And I have to decide, I have to think about, and I have to ponder on how to respond in that situation. So a study has been done by Claudia Leopold and Richard Mayer in 2014, and they had two groups, and the one group was taught by words alone, and the other group was taught by pictures, images, and things like that. And they've realized that the group that's been taught by pictures and images learned much faster and much more than the group that was just taught by words alone. And that's why I'm saying your imagination, the pictures that you're thinking, is so important. So many times we get anxious because we have this bad imagination about the future. There's this things in the picture, they call it seeing with the mind's eye. The study was called Seeing with the Mind's Eye. So a lot of times we are anxious because we have this bad picture about this future or the future, or this bad picture about what can happen. And if we have this bad picture, what happens? We either fight, we flee, we freeze, or we fawn. And we say, listen, we have to come to a place where we say, listen, but I don't want to react like that. And also ask the question, but why do I react like that? So dealing with your imagination, dealing with your decisions is a very, very important thing. And the final question that you have to ask yourself, and it really connects a lot to number 3, is what are your thoughts? What am I thinking about? Because your thoughts will make or break you. Dr. Joe Dispenza said you think 60 to 70,000 thoughts in one day, and 90% of these thoughts are the same as the day before. The same thought will lead to the same choices. The same choices will lead to the same behaviors, and the same behaviors will lead to the same experiences, and the same experience will create the same emotions and the same familiar feelings, and these feelings will drive the same thoughts. So in order for us to change our future, in order for us to change our mood, in order for us to change our thinking, we have to change our thoughts and meditation. I know, like, change your thinking, change your thoughts, right? But you have to go ask yourself the question, what thoughts am I thinking every day, and why am I thinking these thoughts? What thoughts are healthy for me and what thoughts are not healthy for me? And the cycle has to be changed. And that's why it's important to think about what you are thinking about. Sit and go say, listen, my thoughts on a daily basis. What am I thinking about, and why am I thinking this? Alan Baddeley said, working memory is an important function for excellence in mental life, making possible all other intellectual efforts, from communication to taking logical perspectives. And I think, this is a very important thing to say. My thinking patterns, my behavior patterns, is this logical or is it illogical? Because one thing is very certain, and we've been taught this and we've learned this, you cannot deal with what you are not willing to face, or you cannot deal with what you are not willing to admit. And we cannot deal with what we are not willing to admit. And this is why I want to give you these 4 questions, and this is why I think these 4 questions is important in dealing with anxiety. So I'm just just going to go through them quickly again, and then I'll see you guys in our next video. So what are your anxiety triggers? What triggers me and causes me to become anxious? Because that gives you an indication of what you need to deal with. And if you need to deal with it, it's very important to go speak to somebody, go speak to a counselor, go speak to a psychologist and say, listen, I have these triggers. What are your responses? Do you fight? Do you flee? Do you freeze? Or do you fawn? And then make sure you deal with that. What do you want your response to be? And imagine your response, decide your response, and say, I'm going to have a goal to work towards what I want my response to be. And what I want my response to be, I want to deal with this situation in the correct manner. And then the final thing, what are your thoughts? Change your thoughts, change your thinking, change your imagination, and make sure you get rid of toxic thoughts. Make sure you get rid of bad thoughts. And those are the 4 questions that I want to give you on dealing with anxiety. In our next video, so next week, we're going to continue with how to deal with anxiety, and I'm going to give you 3 other points. So make sure you see that video. Thank you so much for watching. I'm very excited to see you guys, and we will see you soon again. And may your mind prosper. I'm Albert Villa. It was great to speak to you guys. See you soon again. Goodbye.